Welcome back. Today's episode is about trying to get the hi-hat controller to work. So this is actually a completely unmodified kick drum pedal with a Roland KD7 attached. This works great to give me a hi-hat sound, or I can hook it up to any sound I want really, but I want this to be the hi-hat. And I want it to perform two functions. Number one, to strike the hi-hat, but I also want it to be able to open and close the hi-hat. Now I'm going to do that with a switch in the heel. So my one foot can do the job of an entire hi-hat rig. Before I go cutting or drilling or modifying or doing anything to this pedal, I want to talk through some of the design ideas that I've had first. The first idea was to take a standard stomp box switch that you'd find in most guitar pedals and install that straight into the heel plate. That's a fairly obvious solution. But in practice, these switches are designed to be very tall and they just wouldn't fit inside a heel plate like this. If I tried to install it, it would probably be protruding about 1.5 centimeters above the heel plate, which would feel a lot like standing on a bolt or something. I think it would eventually wear a hole in the bottom of my shoe, and these switches are designed to be really pressed hard, and you need a lot more pressure to activate that switch than I would want for this. So the next idea was to take something like a Boss foot switch, something like this, remove that heel plate entirely and put the whole switch like that. Now obviously I could play around with angles and try and get this to fit differently, but everywhere I tried this it felt very uncomfortable. I put my heel on here and the angles and it didn't work the way I thought it would. The next idea was to take just the plastic foot switch section and maybe install that where the heel plate would go. But again, it didn't feel very comfortable when I tried it, and this switch is only made of plastic. It's actually not very sturdy at all, and I think that would probably snap and break within about an hour of use. So that's no good. My next idea was to take a cheap sustain pedal for a keyboard, which fits almost perfectly in that spot. But again, it's cheap, it's plastic, and I don't think it would last very long. But more importantly, because of the shape of this pedal, the whole foot felt like it was being pushed forwards. It was ergonomically not comfortable to play. You look at the original heel plate, it's sloped that way. So the whole foot, although you're pushing down on this pedal, the whole foot is on a consistent angle. This felt very odd, actually. Even though it works, you have to press with the back of your heel, and that's not really where the center of gravity is on your foot. Even if you switch it around this way, it feels very strange to play. So that's not as good as I thought it would be. Next option, the same idea but a much slimmer pedal. So this is also a sustain pedal, but it's made of metal and it's slimmer. This didn't feel too bad, but again, when you press down with your heel, you feel like your whole foot is being pushed forwards, and it's an odd feeling. It's not really the way that you'd want to have your foot resting on the pedal. Then I got a little bit creative and I thought, what if I mounted the whole pedal assembly on top of that? That way, you know, if I push down, it's activating the switch underneath. It kind of works, but the problem is when you're pressing down very heavily with the front of your heel, you're actually exerting enough pressure with your whole foot to push the whole switch down, even if you mean to or not. So it became very hard to press that without pushing the heel part down. See what I mean? Even if I take the pressure off there's enough pressure from my toe to keep the heel switch down. And again, it just didn't really work the way I'd planned. Even if I switch this around the other way, you'd think this would work, but your heel ends up going backwards while your toe is going forwards, and yeah. So with all these various ideas, I came across mainly ergonomic problems. While the switches themselves would have worked, it just would have been unplayable. So what am I going to do? Well, after all of that, I've decided to come full circle. I am going to install a switch directly into the heel plate, but instead of being a tall guitar switch like that, it's going to be a very low profile, low pressure switch like this. I guess it's almost like a micro switch. That's going to be installed straight into the heel plate, and I think that should do it. Okay, there it is. This works as normal. Ready to go. Well, the first version of these drums are kind of set up now, so let me give you a look. And we've got kick, snare, hi-hat, dog, and crash. And just on my heel here I've got the hi-hat closer. A little switch there. Alright, let's give this a crack. Let's try this. Try a bit of a 4-beat. Well, it works in principle. I've got to do a bit of practice here, but yeah, this is pretty good. So I'm actually pretty happy with this left foot arrangement here. It's actually really easy to play, and it feels good, and by playing with all the adjustment settings on the drum pedal I can get the sort of feel I want and the right amount of tension. Over here on the right foot, this is all working pretty well, but a little problem I'm going to have to think through is that when you hit these pedals, like say the crash, and you hit it once, it keeps swinging for ages, and that means that the pedal's not necessarily going to be there where you left it the next time you go to strike it. It's constantly moving. And same thing with the hi-hat. As long as I keep my foot on it, no problem. But if I move over and hit the crash, it's a bit awkward. Look at him go. Yeah, so I'm trying to think of maybe some kind of like a pedal stay that will, maybe some kind of device that will kind of rest against the top of the mallet there, so when I hit it, it returns and stops like that. A couple of other smaller issues. This little switch that I installed, it works really well, but it does stick up a lot more than I had planned. So I'm thinking of maybe trying to recess that even further into the pedal so that just the top of the switch pokes through. And lastly, I'm trying to decide if I want to modify these pedals so that I can swing my foot from left to right more easily. Hello, Theo. This is Theo. He's checking out my drums. What you doing, Theo? Wait. Hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. See you in the next video.